everyone. Welcome to another episode of my POA podcast, Black Hand and Beyond. This is episode number 107, and tonight we're going to talk about Lannans from Nebraska, Columbus, Nebraska to be exact, and it was Dr. Jack Lannan. He was a veterinarian and a businessman from just outside Columbus, Nebraska. They had about 93 acres of irrigated land, and they ran a whole bunch of POAs and horses. They bred Appaloosas, and I think he did some trading and stuff. And over the years, he found some small Appaloosas and ponies that looked like POAs and brought them into the breed. And of course, he founded one of the greatest programs in early day POA history, especially if you count 1970 and before. It would probably be right up there. You know, a lot of great Iowa programs and a few other programs, and then the Jack Lannan program from Nebraska. So Lannans can still be traced back if you go on Allbreed, or if you contact me or the POA office and look up pedigrees, you still can find the Lannans in many pedigrees. So that's going to be our episode tonight. Lisa's already joining us. Thank you, Lisa, from California. She just sent me a picture that I couldn't find. I have so many pictures in my phone of cars, dogs, plates of food, and of course POAs and horses, quarter horses, Appaloosas. I couldn't find her beautiful stallion that we'll be talking about in a few minutes, because we're actually going to lead to some modern history, and so she sent me that picture. But anyway, I want to put a ribbon on episode 106 before we get started here, put a bow on last week's episode. I want to thank Harry and Janice Chestnut from Allegan, Michigan again for being gracious guests and coming on the podcast as phone guests, and it was a cool episode. I knew it would be. There's a few things I forgot to mention. Again, Janice and Harry's related to so many POA people. We forgot a few names. Janice's niece, Holly, she was about my age. She grew up showing in POAs. I'm sorry, Holly. She didn't bring it up, I don't think, but we happened to notice we didn't mention her name. And then, of course, her daughter, Madison Wagner, she grew up in POAs as well. So there's actually a connection there. They had the Crisco kid that my family raised. So there's another connection I wanted to mention that we forgot to talk about. And I wish I would have mentioned this when I had Harry and Janice live, because this is kind of a special deal. There's only been a handful of breeders in the history of POAs. You know, I'm the record guy. I'm the statistics guy. From 1958 when or actually 59 when it started till now, there's only been a handful of people that's done this one achievement, and the Chestnut family has done it, and my family, Rorks, did it. And the versatility didn't start until 85, so that's why some people didn't do this. But the achievement is being the breeder of a grand champion at the International or Congress show, either a mare, stallion, or a gelding, and then also being a breeder. It can be a whole different horse, whole different POA, but being a breeder of a versatility winner. And there's a few people out there, maybe 6, 7, 8 at tops, that have done both. The Chestnut family has done that with Skip on Nova, and then of course Nick Spittin' Image was the grand champion stallion. So you have that, and then we had, you know, a versatility winner, and of course a grand champion as well. That's actually related to Lannans. They both are. Both of ours are related to Lannans. The Crisco kid goes back to Lannan Series Super Spot, and then Bounce Back Jack was the grand champion stallion, and he goes back to Lannan's Ace of Spades and Lannan's Sweetheart. That is, we'll see now. So anyway, I just wanted to say that, and again, thank those guys. If anybody wants to be a guest on the show, please do it. It's hard to do this without guests. I can just sit here like this and talk. You know, I don't mind talking about POAs, but I'd rather interview somebody, not to brag, but I think I'm getting to be a pretty good interviewer. It's kind of fun. When you've done it so many times now, it just starts getting natural. I like talking to people and hearing their stories. You know, I get to learn stuff here too, and you see me smiling a lot of times when I'm interviewing people, or laughing too, because they tell these cool stories. We have a lot of great history in the POA. So it doesn't matter if you're a trainer, breeder, shower, if you used to have POAs, if you had 100 POAs, or if you had one. If you want to be a guest on here, contact me. There's multiple ways to contact me on social media, and my phone number is always floating around, and I'll talk to you, and we'll get you on here on a Tuesday night. So hello, Monica, my wife, my beautiful wife, Jan Rogers in Iowa, Terry Thorson in Iowa. We always have a good Iowa group that shows up. So hopefully we get some Australian people tonight. They asked maybe to be a guest tonight, and I said, well, I have so much to talk about. I know several Lannan horses went to Australia, and you can look up that as well. That's a past episode. And that brings me to the fact that my wife's been busy this week updating all these episodes on YouTube. So you can go on YouTube now on the POA History channel, and there's been about 60 or 70 on there in the last couple days. She's got all of them on there now. So I believe all 106 episodes are available on YouTube. You can see how many views they have on there. Of course, they have a lot more views on their home where they started. But Facebook and Meta, things are changing a little bit. We already had to go from the POA History group to my own personal page here. So now in June, they're going to do a few more shenanigans, so we might not be able to do this quite the way we have. So we might have to go to YouTube or come up with a whole different podcast. Hopefully we can keep going and I don't have to shut down, because I know I have a lot of followers that enjoy this, and I still enjoy doing it. So, but yeah, check out the POA History channel on the YouTube, and you'll see all 106 episodes on there that you can enjoy. So, all right, now we got some people. Gary's here from South Dakota, Likeness. Of course, they had Copper Sundance. He's going to be an episode coming up. Megan's here. Hello, Megan. All right, let's get going. Take my face off the deal and put on. This horse was the 1963 International Champion Yearling Stallion. So we're talking 62 years ago when he won. He's a 62 colt. This is Lannan's Ace of Spades. This picture doesn't do his head justice. We'll see one of his famous daughters in a minute that she became known for her head and her foals and grand foals. But this is Lannan's Ace of Spades. He became one of their big sires. Like I say, Lannan's hit it pretty heavy in the 60s, and then around the late 60s, they kind of went on. They moved on. Jack Lannan actually became a really good golfer in his older years. His retirement years, he had I don't know what handicap. I read it in his obituary. The man actually didn't pass away till 2016, and I can tell you as a historian, I almost shed a tear because I was already in my 40s in 2016, and I could have had a conversation with the guy, and I know, social media just wasn't a thing back in the day. So here in the 80s, like Kiddo Tough was born in 86, I could have talked to him about that. I could have talked to him about so many things. I didn't realize the man lived till the year 2016. He passed away at a retirement community, hooked to a golf course in Arizona. He did well in life. He had a giant feedlot, I believe, and of course he raised a lot of horses. Some of his Appaloosas he used in the POA program. One for sure was Lannan's Tano, and he actually sired a POA winner. So, but I want to start this show tonight as I want to go with a line of 6 generations just real quick, and then I'll get into the deep history. We'll dive deep into Lannan's history, show the kids and stuff on the POAs that are riding. Hello, Bill. Hello, Christine. Bill's from Wisconsin. Christine is from Iowa, of course. So again, this is Lannan's Ace of Spades, and he sired a lot of pretty headed foals. He had a little bit of color going here. He lost his color in the front. That's as a yearling, but we'll see some adult pictures of him too. This is the most famous picture of him. Sorry, it's a little washed out here. You can see different pictures of this, different copies of this. This is like copied 4 or 5 times from the magazine from the early 60s. So it's just remarkable that we got this much. Hello, Pat from Texas. Okay. And then here's a picture of him as an adult stud. He's got the bigger neck and stuff, but you can see his head there and what he threw. And then, of course, this filly here became his most significant contribution to POAs. The baby there is Lannan's Sweetheart, and as you can tell by that chiseled dish face as a little baby, she went on to be well known as the Sweetheart Head. People like Jackie Guthrie would still be able to talk to you about the Sweetheart Head. She had a daughter of this mare. Olin Ziegler and Patsy Ziegler of Ohio ended up with this mare. They ended up with quite a few of the Lannans. When Lannans got out of POAs, they brought a lot of them from Nebraska to Ohio and did well. This mare became a Hall of Famer. And, of course, here she is when she got a little older. And this is one of her famous offspring, Oz's Minute Maid. And we're not going to talk about Minute Maid right now. We will talk about her later and one of her famous granddaughters. But you see that beautiful head on Lannan's Sweetheart there as a broodmare. She won. There wasn't a broodmare class back then, or she would have won it, of course, at the national show. She did win the national show in mares and stuff, and mare and foal. She won mare and foal many times. She had many champion foals that we'll talk about, but the one in this line is Oz's Sweet Speculation. There she is as a baby. She was way ahead of her time. Her picture was sent to Australia for the Palouse Pony magazine so they could see kind of a model what to breed for, and they ended up getting relatives to her, like the Lannan's horses, like Minuteman, who was a half-brother to her. There's Speculation, the famous Gary Hamilton picture of her in Ohio by the lake. She's about 6 in that picture. And then there's 2 pictures of her, that little bitty head, those foxy ears, and there's Judy Phillips. She was grand champion in 82 and in 84. So the years she had babies on her in 83 and 85, they were the only 4 years she campaigned as an age mare. She was either second or third in her class those years, both years, but she had a full on her in 83 and in 85. But the 2 years she didn't have a full, she was the grand champion mare. So that's the next generation here. And then, of course, she had quite a few foals. Levi was one of them, but this was a grand champion stallion she had that my family bred. This is Bounce Back Jack. He was with the Caswells for a long time. The Cantons had him when he won. Carmen Hoffman showed him as a yearling right about the time this picture was taken. He won grand champion stallion. This is him with Larry Caswell when he was an age stallion. He's kind of running downhill there, but it's the ground more than anything. It's hilly in that part of Minnesota. He was a beautiful stallion, nice mover too, and again, a beautiful head. His dad was a 15-plus hand Appaloosa, and he was still under 56 easily. So, and then one of his most famous foals is, of course, Lisa Reckon's famous stallion. She calls him Bouncer, Ultimate Bounce. He was bred in Minnesota. We hauled him. We didn't breed him, but we hauled him to the sale for the gentleman that raised him, and then on a whim, Lisa bought him, and he became a champion stallion as a 3-year-old. Again, another beautiful horse, just a beautiful foretop, an eye, expressive eye and head. This goes back to the Lannan's line. And then he's had a lot of good babies out there for Lisa, the Skyrock POAs, and here he is when he was a little older, under saddle. And then here's one of his cute babies stepping out with a Bounce, I think is his name. Sorry, Lisa, if I screwed that up. But stepping, I think stepping's one word, stepping with a Bounce. And that's a nice Suncrest mare. Lisa has really good POAs out there in California, and this is just one of them. I could have showed a whole bunch of Ultimate Bounce babies. But this is just a line of 6 I wanted to start showing you instead of just showing you 40 pictures of black and white from 63 to 67 and everybody taking a nap. I wanted to show some of the possibilities and what they did and how they've went through. And of course, Siri is a big part of the Lannans. A lot of their horses, we're going to run through some names really quick. They had 9 stallions that became, I'm going to read a little bit here, 9 stallions that became champion sires. I won't say Lannans every time, just the first time. The first 2 my family used pretty heavily in our breeding program. So Lannan Series Super Spot, and that's Ray Peets had him, the Driftwoods POAs, and then Lannan's Ace of Spades, who we was just looking at as a yearling there, and then Series Super Dot Chieftain, Series Super Dot Hondo, Series Super Dot Minuteman, Lannan's Tano, APHC, and then Series Super Dot, Series Super Dot Dusty, and Series Super Scott all became national champion sires. And of course, there was other ones too, like Lannan Series Super Dot Star, Lannan Series Super Dot Star Trek, Lannan Series Super Dot Borkin. We've seen pictures of him. They're not champion sires as Congress champions, but they all did an impact in POAs and had an effect on POAs. They sired some nice ones. They just didn't make the list. So let me flip back to the picture here, and we'll go look at some more pictures. I hope everybody's having fun tonight. We're going to get to some other names. Stepping Out with the Bounce, Rascal. Yeah, Rascal's his name. Owned by the Kennedys. Okay, thanks, Lisa. That's him. He's a good-looking baby, the one we just showed by Ultimate Bounce. So let's see. That's those 9 pictures. Let's go. We're going to play bingo next week. So far, this is the response on POA bingo. Nobody's really going into it. I've had one couple ask for a card each, so I got 2 cards out of 30 named. Otherwise, not a lot of interest in bingo, maybe we'll have to scratch it, or maybe I'll just show pictures that night. But I think the POA bingo game would be fun. We're going to show pictures of horses, and some of them I'll let you know the names because some of them might be older, some might be modern for some people. So I think it'd be a cool game, and then I'll send out cards to you, and you get to fill out the cards. But back to the show tonight, the Lannan's episode. Now, this episode's not going to be terribly long because I'm not going to do an anthology of the Lannan's program. We're not going to mention every single Lannan's horse that was ever bred, but this is, we will hit the highlights, of course. This is the family from the early 60s, and this is the 4 kids there, and then there's Dr. J.P. Lannan, so Jack was his name, and I think I got a list of the kids' names maybe later, but so then we'll go through some pictures here. And you see some of those are not POAs. The one's a little pony, but. Okay, here's the kids' names here, I believe. Yep, there we go. So we have Sharon, Dan, Kathy, and Pat. And they were 11, 9, 8, and 5 in that photo. And that photo was taken probably in the mid-60s. You see, a lot of times back then, POA people showed their place in pictures, especially the Christmas edition of the POA magazine. Look at all those babies there, maybe late babies, early yearlings too, but they raised a lot of them, Lannans, and they were usually loud colored, and that's before they knew a lot about color genetics. You know, they bred leopards thinking leopards was the answer, and they would even brag about how much a leopard like this would throw color, and of course we know now that isn't the case, but they would get a loud colored leopard once in a while from one, so then they'd think that was it. But you know, everything's progressed, and this course is a kind of a rare photo here. It was published, but I haven't seen it a lot. This is Siri Chief, so I'll mark that down for next week because this picture may be used in the bingo game. So that's the number 2 POA ever registered, and he played a big impact on the Lannan's program, also the polka dot pony farm program, which Lannan's used a lot of polka dots. So Russell Officer from Kansas was the polka dots. There's Lannan's Ace of Spades again. We've covered him pretty well. There he is again. Okay, so kind of a cool thing that they did in the 60s. Lannan's advertised a lot. Of course, advertising was a lot cheaper than it is nowadays, just like a brand new pickup wasn't $80,000 back then. You could get it for single digits, or a sports car or whatever. They would do a filly of the month, and then one year they did mare of the month. So this is Peace Pipe's Little Smoke, and look at her registration number, 4003. So of course tentative 4003. That's pretty cool. You can see some of these builds on these, maybe not this one as much, but some of them is why they kind of were way ahead of their time, because I think Jack had a pretty good eye. And the Koretstein we're going to show later, he called him his quarter horse type, and then the Lannan's Ace of Spades horse was more of the Arab type. And you got to remember, back then they had a couple different types. They almost went like the miniature horses and stuff, where they had the Arab looking pony and the quarter pony. It wasn't until a little later that they went more to the stock horse pony for sure, with a little bit of influence of Arabian in the head and neck. So that was Lannan's Little Squaw. This is Lannan's Honeydew, filly of the month. Again, you can start seeing the structure and stuff. This is 60 some years ago, so a long time ago. This one went on to be pretty well-known POA, Lannan Series Super Dot Fawn, and of course Dale Baum and Sons, it says. The young guy in this picture is the Dale Baum that a lot of people remember. I know Pat will remember him, and Jackie. He had a lot of success. He's passed away now, but he grew up in Michigan with his family, and then he moved to Iowa because of his job. I believe he was in California for a while, and then at the time of his death, he'd been raising POA successfully for quite a few years in Texas. So I think 99 and 2000, he had the champion weanling colt at the international show. So he bred a lot of pretty red and white ones. And before that, his family had bred Prisoner of War, famous POA. He had War Bride, and that was the cornerstone of his operation. Anyway, he's a teenager here in this picture when his family purchased Lannan Series Super Dot Fawn from the Lannans. And I believe that's probably Danny Lannan there. Here's an ad. Again, like I said, they had a lot of ads. They really promoted the international sale. They usually consigned 5 to 7 every year for years all through the 60s. Sometimes they'd only, towards the end, they only had a couple, but a lot of people were consigning ones they had bought from them, broke to ride and stuff. So again, you can see from Columbus, Nebraska, and they also had a manager named Don Person. Lannan's Black Diamond there, he's a good-looking guy for back then. He was a hardship. His pedigree was unknown. I think he was probably an Appaloosa cross that he found. And then there's Lannan Sweetheart up there again. Okay, this is a good ad because this shows you some stallions here. So Koretz Comanche, number 149. Of course, his dad was number 18, Koretz Scottish Chieftain. We did a whole episode on him from Montana, the stallion that possibly came to Canada through Scotland, from Scotland, and he came to the United States through Canada. So they named him Koretz Scottish Chieftain. Koretz Comanche was one of his good producing sons. He's the one on the left. And then on the right is about the fourth picture we've seen of Lannan's Ace of Spades. Again, you can see that head. His hip doesn't look as big there, but his head you can sure see is pretty. And then they have the two separated there. The picture on the right in the middle of Koretz Comanche is the most used picture of him. Again, he called him quarter horse build in some of his ads. And then Polka Dot's Little Heap was actually one of the kind of silent producers of the breed. He ended up being the sire to Oz's Minute Maid, and that's him down there. And you can see he's a color producer. He threw a lot of leopards and stuff, and he was homozygous, as you can see. They didn't call it that back then, but he was, and he produced some good colors for Lannan's. So, of course, he wasn't the sire of Minute Maid. Lannan's Ace of Spades was, but he was the sire of a lot of good ones for Lannan's. Here again, some ads. They like to team horses up. Running Feather ended up being a good mother, good mare for him. So was the Dardons mare. Dardons are from Colorado. Don and Darlene Wiltkin from Colorado, and we're well-known POA people. So Lannan Super Dottie became a known POA, and there's Lannan Series Super Dot became a well-known POA as well. Here's Lannan's Pretty Hawk and Series Super Dot up there. Again, Lannan Series Super Dot. And then Moser's Prairie Princess and Lannan's Series Super Dot Borkin as a young weanling. We'll see pictures of him. He ended up going to Colorado to Ken and Wilma Bateman, Ken Wills. Here's Lannan's Pretty Princess when somebody else sold her at the sale in '66. She was the third highest selling POA at the 1966 International Sale. Lannan's Miss Blackie was Mare of the Month. Again, you can kind of see the necks they started putting on him. You got to remember some of the top first 100 registered POAs, except for Siri Chief and some of his relatives, and that's where these guys went to, was the Siri blood. But a lot of them were pretty ponyish in the neck, so Lannan started stretching out those necks. Here's Dardon's Spotted Fawn again, in full to Siri Super Chief. Siri Super Chief was one of Siri Chief's best sons. He was out of Vicky, who was number 16 registered, by the way. Here's WPF's Diamond Lil. Wigwam Pony Farm was the Grimans in Minnesota, and they produced some nice ones. So again, in full to Siri Super Chief. Some of these pictures were probably young pictures. They would probably looked a lot older by the time they say they were in full. Here's Lannan's Pretty Hawk. Nice looking filly. This is the mare that I think looks way ahead of her time. If you stop and take a look at this picture, Koretz Miss Scottish Chieftain. I looked up her foals and all breed pedigree base. Of course, it doesn't have, a tenth of all the ponies registered or not right all the time. But I couldn't find a foal between her and Siri Chief, and I didn't look in the stud books. I just didn't have enough time. But I did find some foals by other stallions and her, some Lannan's foals on all breed that went on to have foals and, just kept the line going up to the 80s and 90s. So that's kind of cool. Again, keep in mind, this is from the mid-60s. These are the 2000, 21, 25 is her number. So Circus King's Queen, there was a POA. Of course, we all heard of Stewart's Danny Boy. In that story, the leopard horse they brought for John Ludwig to look at ended up being Stewart's Circus King. And John didn't want him. He ended up taking Danny Boy. But, Circus King ended up being in the POA breed, and this was one of his foals, Circus King's Queen. That's kind of tough to say. Again, kind of round-bodied, starting to tie up a little higher in the neck, pretty headed. This was probably one of their best mares. She produced a lot of good ones for them, including Lannan Sweetheart. And this is Running Feather. And again, you see that shoulder and just the mass to her. Her tail might be set a little high, but still, for back then, she was before the 2000s, pre-2000s. So, number-wise, 1729, 1,729th POA registered. But she made a lasting impact on the breed. Running Feather did. Lannan's Pretty One. In full, the Lannan's Ace of Spades. Stardot. Another one of their mares. I loved it when people advertise like this because, it just left a treasure trove of history for us. We just got to go look at it and go find it. I hope you guys are enjoying this show. We got a lot of pictures yet to go. Here's an ad they had on the front, either the inside front or inside back cover. I showed you where they said their consignments to the 7th annual. Now here's the consignments to the 8th annual international sale. Lannan's Flicka down there, Dardon's Little Joker, Little Chief, and Little Fawn. Again, look at those necks. Koretz Comanche threw some duns and bays. I think he had some Garulas, so he had some of that color going on in him. Again, there's their 3 main stallions that they went with. Koretz Comanche, Lannan's Ace of Spades, and Polka Dot's Little Heap. And then some pictures of their mares and their foals. And a lot of breeders at the time that in the 60s and the 70s, you'd see people like Ray Peets, Bud Campbell, Carl Oz, and people all over the country. The one thing that the common denominator, breeding stock for sale at all times. Max Nebergall, of course, Norm Stevenson, Lynn Puffenberger, they always had stuff for sale, and that's what helped grew this thing, just blew POAs up in the 60s and 70s. There was always stock available, and they'd help them get them transferred into their name and join the POA club. So now this is a very important ad in history right here. One of our future herd sires, which 2 would you like? That's a pretty clever ad. All 3 of them ended up being sold because they just didn't keep going on in POAs. But these all would have been, I think, 66 babies. Of course, Lannan Series Super Dot, they did use for a little bit, the one on the top. Then they sold him as about a 2-year-old to George Bishop. Of course, famous POA guy, the St. Nick's POAs. And then 3 of the most famous POAs he ever raised didn't carry his prefix. That was KC's Colorado Chief, Barkeeper, and Salty 3 Bars. But there's been a whole bunch of St. Nick's that were famous that, of course, had his prefix. So he had that stallion for about 5 or 6 years, Lannan Series Super Dot. Lannan Series Super Dot Borkin ended up going to people that ended up being in business with Bishop, and that was Ken and Wilma Bateman, Ken Wills from Colorado. They used him successfully for quite a few years. We'll see a modern picture of him. He grew up to have a long neck, Borkin did. And then the most famous all these, probably just because where he went, Lannan Series Super Spot. Now, and remember, a lot of them are Super Dot, and then with a name, or just the original Lannan Series Super Dot. And then there's been probably 50 to 100 Lannan Series Super Dot, this and that. But the one that became the leading sire of the group and the herd sire for Ray Peets and Spencer, Iowa, for the Driftwoods POAs was the one on the right down there, Lannan Series Super Spot. And he ended up being the grandsire of East Acres Chippewa and a lot of other famous POAs. So he grew up to be a stocky little guy, and he helped change Ray Peets' program for sure. And here he is, consigned as a yearling. He topped the sale as a yearling, not the wholesale, but for yearlings. $1,750, which was a lot of money in 1967. And you see there he's by Lannan. Series Super Chief was his sire, own son of Series Chief, and then Lannan's Pretty Hawk. Lannan Series Super Chief doesn't get the credit now that he deserves. A lot of people have forgotten about him because Series Chief overshadowed him so much, but Series Super Chief and his full brother Series Supreme Chief both did a good job as sires in the breed, early sires. And of course, Lannan Series Super Spot did a great job, as I say. And he writes in here, I kept some of the, if you guys want to go back and watch this video and pause it and stuff, you can read some Jack Lannan's writings. I always like to read these guys' owner statements because, you know, they sat down and penned this or typed it and for the catalog. It's kind of cool to read some of the things they wrote back then. So here's that picture again in Columbus, Nebraska, before he headed to the sale in Iowa. He was a young yearling there. And then here he is probably about a 2-year-old when Pete's campaigned him and showed him. He ended up being about 48 inches and about as wide as he was tall. You see him here. He's only 48 inches at maturity. And he crossed him to Chippo Leo and got some great results, the famous quarter mare, Chippo Leo. Here's some of I think these were all from 72. Again, see, they bred leopards. Some of these were out of quarter mares and some were out of POA mares. And some of them were probably really good color producers because we know now, you know, it wasn't Super Spot that was producing all the colors. So, and then here's Lannan Series Super Dot. Like I said, purchased by George Bishop. So Latch's Blaze would have been on the other side of this ad. This was in the magazine, the high-selling 2-year-old and older stallion. So this would have been the year after Super Spot sold. Super Dot sold as a 2-year-old. But Lannan's did breed him to a few mares before they let him go. So, and I think we'll see a few foals by him. Good Shirley Rice photo there from 1968. She was a well-known POA photographer in the mid to late 60s. Now here he is out in Utah, beautiful Bonneville, Utah, when Bishops decided to sell him. And I believe this was about 72 or so. So, and you see he was out of running feather too. So him and Lannan's sweetheart were half siblings. And we can write what George Bishop, of course, he always said Barkeeper was the best POA in the breed. Well, before that, best POA stallion in the breed. This one, he says, one of the finest stallions in the breed. So, but, you know, he was really still pretty young here, 6 years old. George was a great promoter. And here's the horse that ended up in Colorado. I'm not sure if anybody knows where he ended up after that, but Lannan Series Super Dot Borkin. He was a reference sire for years and years. I hadn't seen many other pictures of him except when he was younger as a baby and maybe a yearling. But it says here he did well in halter out in Colorado, bragging that he's a grandson of Series Chief too, which he was. So kind of a unique look there, but you can tell he's getting that round hip and croup, and kind of a long neck there. Here's a beautiful headed Lannan Series Super Dot Chieftain. He became famous. The McMillans and several other families had him, and it says here it was sold to Australia, New South Wales, Australia. The one that made the big splash going to Australia, though, was Lannan Series Super Dot Minuteman, and we'll get to him. We had a whole episode pretty much about him. He's been in several episodes. We had an episode with Margot Shanley's daughter, if you remember that one, and she's in the Hall of Fame, Margot. So here's a picture out of my book, Spots Included, and this is, of course, Lannan Series Super Dot Minuteman, grandson of Series Super Chief. He became a champion in the ring and as a sire before being exported to Australia in the 70s. So he probably would have became a bigger name in POAs. He was built right. He was pretty. He was a good moving horse, but he helped the Palouse for sure. Again, I wish some Palouse people were on tonight, but they'll probably come on later and watch it. This one's a little out of order, but there's George Bishop on the lead there with when he purchased Lannan Series Super Dot for $18.70 as a 2-year-old. And, of course, that is Dr. Jack Lannan by the hip there, the breeder of this horse. Another Shirley Rice photo, same time. I love this mare, Lannan Sweetheart. I got to see her out in Ohio at her home base at Ziegler's in Xenia, or out in Ohio, Bryan, Ohio. and that's her mother there. Good shot of her too, but just that beautiful head on Lannan Sweetheart. Of course, she did lose her color. She changed. Some of her babies did a little bit, and some of them died the same color they were born. So this is one of her first famous fillies, and this is Oz's Minute Maid. Of course, she won the Futurity. That wasn't the Select back then. It was the International Futurity, and she won that as a baby, and then the Batemans bought her from Ziegler's, and she won Grand Champion mare out in Colorado in 1975 as a 3-year-old. And then probably one of the best things she did for the breed, even though she was a beautiful mare herself, and she produced some good stuff for Batemans, including a solid daughter that they ended up breeding and getting. Kenwell's Barmaid would be this mare's granddaughter. So a lot of people have heard of that great mare. One of the most famous mares in our breed, for sure, Western Pleasure-wise, and just a beautiful mare. Put Barkeeper on the map as a sire, and this is her grandma right here as a baby. And there she is as a little weanling there with her mom. Famous picture there. That was on the cover more than once, I believe. I have a big picture of this in my museum, my own museum, garage, man cave in Enid, America. Here's one of my most favorite POAs. I showed some of these pictures earlier, but it's on this slide too. My family bought her in 1986, as Pat Burton said earlier, way ahead of her time. This was from 1976. Gene Carr actually judged this mare at the Southwest Regional in Tennessee, and he was the first guy to put her ahead of her mom. She wasn't very old. He put her grand, and he put Lannan Sweetheart Reserve grand. You can go back in the records and check that. I think she was 3 or 4 weeks old. She was the first POA to obtain her ROM and halter as a weanling. Olin Ziegler campaigned her all over the United States. He showed her in Tennessee, showed her in Minnesota, and that was from being based in Ohio. So she got beat by, this is a trivia question for you. I'm going to get on the screen for this one. Ream Sandpiper won the international show in 1976, and this filly was second. But she did win some other big things, of course, and then went on to be a famous mare and a good brood mare. This is her again. I'll go through some of these quick as we've seen these. She kind of disappeared out of POAs for 6 years, but Judy Phillips went and found her. Speaking of Judy, there she is. This picture was taken out in Colorado. She's in foal with Levi inside her right here, which would become her first baby at 7 years old. She had foal Levi, who became a 2-time national champion and then a big-time champion gelding in Indiana. And there's that famous Sweetheart head. That was her mother's name, Sweetheart, and they POA people back then called it the Sweetheart head. All right, so that's that slideshow there. So bear with me. Hope you guys are enjoying the show. I haven't seen any comments lately since Lisa's comment, unless I'm missed them for some reason. Don't forget, next week, if you want to play bingo, send me an instant message, and I'll send you a POA bingo card. It's really pretty cool. I put everything in a system. We're not done with this episode yet. I'm just taking a little break. But I put everything in a system, 40-some names, and it put 25 names on the card. We are going to, even though there's a name in the middle space, which should be blank or free, the free space, we'll just count that as a free space, but there will be a name there. So when that picture comes up, I think it's going to be fun. We usually have 20 to 40 people watching live, and then, about a couple thousand views every week. But so that's why I figured 30 cards would be plenty. Some people may want to play more than one card. You always see that person at the bingo parlor, when I cards, and I was like 9 years old with one card, and then, 2 cards maybe. I thought it was something else. So we'll see how many people play. If only a handful of people want to play, then I'll see if people want another card. And it's totally free, and we're going to give some swag away. I have some little stuff at home, some horse things. I got a Horseopoly game and a couple little statues, horse-related stuff. That's going to be the grand prizes. And then here's our swag cam tonight at Jackson's. And if I see you this year or something, or if you're passing through, whatever, I'll try to get you some swag if you win. This will be for the winners. We'll probably play like 3 games or so of bingo. So you can win some cups, frisbees, hats, sunglasses, all kinds of cool stuff with Jackson's logos. Keep in mind they're a good sponsor of POAs, and they allow us to have the Studio J here at their dealership. So, and they sponsor the Congress the last couple of years as well because of this podcast is why they do that. And, you know, probably 3 or 4 POA people, including Pat Burton twice now, have bought vehicles here at Jackson, so they appreciate that too, that it's reciprocating. So, all right, let's get back to the slideshow. We got a few more, and then I'll let you guys go and enjoy your evening. Let's see. We did that one. Happy birthday yesterday to Patrick. Famous POA. My dad's birthday was yesterday too. Pat Rorick. Of course, he passed away a couple years ago, but let's see here. I think we got to go this way. Bear with me. CN Silver Leprechaun, of course, is Patrick's name, but he was born on St. Patrick's Day. Here we go. All right. Click. So when I was a kid, Heidi from Dubuque, Iowa, I remember she wrote, I think it was Heidi, she wrote, "I'm tough too," a double tough daughter. But this actually is Lannan's great ace, and she was nice enough to send me these pictures. And, of course, he's older there. And there she is holding the trophy she won. And then, of course, I always got to find stuff in the catalogs or on my phone. And here he was as about a 2-yearling or a 2-year-old at the sale in Iowa. And probably a 2-year-old, I imagine. Carl Knutson was from Iowa, was consigning him. Lannan's great ace. Lannan's ace of spades son out of Lannan's Little Duchess, a Sunset Dakota Dan daughter. So $350 no sale, and he ended up being a pretty cool POA. So so thank you again for sending those. And her sister just sent me a friend request, so she's getting to see this if she wants to too. So that's cool. Remember, tell your friends about these podcasts. Okay, here's Lannan's Series Super Dot Chieftain again. Ziegler's had him for a while before he went to McMillan's. And it was kind of funny. Chieftain and Minuteman kind of battled each other in the ring. They were two different type leopards. They both were beautiful headed, but they were built a little different, carried themselves different. But they also, their foals started battling each other before the Australian thing. But anyway, in like 75, 76, their foals were at the international and in the futurity and stuff. They were going back and forth, competing against each other. So it was kind of interesting. So even though Lannan's had gotten out of POAs, their stallions were definitely making a name for themselves in the 70s. We already talked about Borkin. There's Lannan Series Super Spot again. You can kind of tell how small he was. He had a pretty good head too. I like what Ray wrote here. Ray Peets again. We purchased this little horse just 2 years ago at the same sale at price of $17.50. Was a lot of money for a yearling, but I don't think so anymore. He produced 9 colts this first season, 7 wild colored and 2 real good bays. He's just what we needed to go with Topaz as sires. So Driftwood's Topaz was a well-known stallion that Ray and Avis Peets had. So he would be pretty young in this picture. He was probably like 2 or 3, depending on when they snapped that picture. So that was for the reference sires in the sales catalog. You can learn a lot going through the sales catalogs. There again, there's Lannan Series Super Dot when he was consigned, when Bishop bought him. There's Ace of Spades. I think we've covered him pretty good. Okay, here we're going to show some Koretz Comanche offspring. Now, he was an early POA. You see the numbers there. 149 was him. 18 was his sire. Of course, he's a legend in the breed, Koretz Scottish Chieftain. Then you see number 822, and look at Stardust way down there, Stardot's mother, number 45. So some early numbers there. Nice neck on this filly. Comanche didn't throw the heads, Ace of Spades did, but he threw a little more bone and substance. Produced Lannan's Brave Warrior, another Comanche. This is in 65. Now this is the wrong description. It says here 159. They got inverted. That happens, and so this actually is not this baby, but I wanted to show it anyway. This is, we'll see in a minute. This is they switched. So the colt would have been the one we just seen, and this picture is the filly. So anyway, they were both Lannans from 65. Here's an ace of spades baby, Lannan's pretty girl. Here's Lannan's Lady Cree with her little wolf baby, Lannan's Little Wolf by Koretz Comanche. You see there Lannan's Tano. His sire was an early Appaloosa horse too. Lannan's Papoose, again in 66. Ludwig purchased that one. John Ludwig from Pennsylvania. Lazy A out there. Lannan's Dashing Squaw, another ace of spades. You can kind of see that head there too a little bit. Look at the mother, Molly, a 48-inch black mare. The studs didn't have the opportunity to breed as good as mares as they do now. Lannan Series Super Dot Fawn went on to be known POA. Lannan Series Super Dot Star. Somebody just went on Facebook right before I come on the air and mentioned that their family had this horse and raised some nice POAs, and he had a great disposition just like his sire Polka Dot's Little Heap. So that was nice to see. Bill, see, I made that comment. I didn't mean to hurt anybody's feelings, but that was actually about bingo. But you said you remember many of these. I figured you would. So, yep, this horse grew up to be a stallion in the breed. Lannan Series Super Dot Star. Lannan Series Mucho Macho. So I put him in here. Kenwill's Series Mucho Macho. I put him in here because Kenwill's had Borkin, and I wanted to show some pictures of some Borkin babies. He carried his head and neck just like Borkin and was kind of tied in the back just like Borkin was. Here's a nice Koretz Comanche adult. This is Lannan's Brave Warrior. Lannan's Miss Blackie was the mother. A lot of Lannans in that pedigree. There's Super Dot again. Lannan Series Super Dot Moon Dust. Again, you see Ziegler's. That's before they moved to Bryan, Ohio. That's when they were still at their original place in Stryker. And that's a Polka Dot Black Blister's daughter. I'm not sure how many Lannan Zieglers brought to Ohio, but it was a lot. Here's another one. Lannan Series Super Dot High Hopes. She's a Black Blisters filly. Lannan Series Super Dot Blackjack, kind of colored a lot like Super Dot. Here's King of Spades. He was in the sale the same year as Lannan Sweetheart. You see he's got a kind of a pug nose too, short little head. Look at that mare. Boy, she'd scare herself going to the water tank. But look at the head on the foal. Nice little short head. Lannan's Dancing Fawn. Another baby from 67. We've seen this one before. Lannan's Pretty One. I believe they retained her. Here's Lannan's Black Diamond. He had a nice build to him. He's just a colored pony that Jack Lannan found somewhere, registered him. That picture didn't do it justice, but I was trying to get in tight on this picture here to show her head, the famous Sweetheart head. There's Koretz Comanche again. When they decided to put him in the sale, they'd kind of moved on a little bit. He said he kept his son, but they were kind of moving on with Ace of Spades, really. So, but they did get a lot of good stuff from Comanche, but they were just kind of going a little more modern, especially in the head. So Klein's, we all know Pam Klein is on the board of directors from Colorado. Of course, her mom, Barbara Klein, and her late dad, Ray Klein, raised a lot of nice POAs in Colorado, and they had Lannan's Series Super Dot Tom Tom. I believe they had him, and they had a lot of foals by him, so they either bred to him or they owned him. But he was a Polka Dot's Little Heap son. So again, another Lannan Series Super Dot, and then Tom Tom that became a sire. And we'll see a few other clients from them. Here's Just a Minute with D. Bowers. Of course, D. Bowers rode Lannan Series Super Dot Minuteman, I believe. And this was a gelding born in 73. You kind of see that head there, too. We're getting, that's a sweetheart grandson there. Here's a Chieftain daughter, Oz's Minuet, leopard layers on the bottom there. Polka dots, black blisters. So this was one of the stallions that Lannan's used a lot. He was the sire of Lannan Series Super Dot Minuteman, Lannan Series Super Dot Dusty, Heaps Machabo, Lannan Series Super Dot Star, and Lannan Series Super Dot Star Trek. He was the sire of all those and a bunch more. So Series Super Chief, again, I mentioned him. Another thing in here, Sequin Jim, ID 683. That's kind of misleading because when Sequin Jim was registered, he was actually the 17th registered POA of all time. And he went over the 52-inch height limit at the time, but he never got that big. Now it's 14 hands, and it became 54 in the early 60s. So they stuck him with 683, the ID, but actually his sire is Series Chief with, number 2, and then his half-sister is Vicky, number 16, and he was number 17. But he's on the bottom of this pedigree here, Sequin Jim. He was a good-looking guy. And there's Vicky right up there, 16. I didn't even realize that she's up there because, of course, she's the mother to Series Super Chief. So polka dot black blisters. He may not look like a lot here, but he did do a good job for POAs, and he's in a lot of pedigrees that are still out in the ring today, just way back. So Jean Adams was the Star Acres breeder from Nebraska, so she was part owner in this guy when they sold him. He would have been an older stallion here. Lannan's Black Lightning, as you can see here, he was shown. He was by Sunset's Dakota Dan. He was a 63 gelding. Here's another Klein's by Lannan Series Super Dot Tom Tom. Loud colored mare. Another Klein's when David Morris consigned him to the sale. Klein's Silver Tom Tom. Here's Picoy's Series Sweetheart. She was a nice looking filly. She went on to do some stuff. She was a own daughter of Lannan Series Super Spot. Kenwell Series Cinco. Again, that's a Lannan Series Super Dot Borkin offspring. Casper's Watch Charm. He was the 64 grand champion. That's him in the pedigree down there. Here's another Lannan's, direct Lannan's, a Koretz Comanche son. Actually, daughter. This is a 67 filly. She had a nice head. And this is Lannan's Dancing Fawn. Indianola, Iowa. That's the home of Victor's. Okay, so then we're back to Heidi here with Lannan's Great Ace. So thanks again for sending those pictures in. So let's see here what we got. So that pretty much wraps up the Lannan's episode. Again, we got to give a lot of credit to Lannan Series Super Dot Minuteman and Lannan Series Super Dot Chieftain. They became well-known POAs, and then of course Series Super Spot and Ace of Spades. But Chieftain and Minuteman, they promoted them as riding horses and just really good. A lot of the Lannans was very talented. Kids could, like a lot of POAs that became famous, a lot of lines. The kids could do a lot with them. They tolerated young children. You got to remember, for a while it was 16 and under, then it was 17 and under, and then later it became 18 and under, and now it's everybody. So, but these ponies had to be, and they had a lot of pony blood in them. Sometimes they weren't all horse. Didn't have a lot of horse in them, but a lot of breeders like Lannan's did put horse early on. He didn't use quarter horse mares much, as you can see, but he did use Appaloosas and then just some ponies and stuff. But that's kind of, unfortunately, time forgot the Lannans a little bit in POAs. A lot of people still remember the horses, but they got out so early that, like, they're not in the Hall of Fame. There's not many. I don't know if there's any Lannans in the Hall of Fame. Lannan Sweetheart is, of course. So, but the impact they had on POA still was very important. So, all right, here's our little logo. Let's talk about next week's episode. I'm all excited for this because I'm a geek a little bit anyway. And here's 3 of the bingo cards right here. Here's bingo cards 3, 1, and 2. And so it's really cool. I went to myfreebingocards.com. I got to put your picture on so you can see it. myfreebingocards.com. And I named it POA Bingo. And then I just put a bunch of names in there. And it randomly put them in place. So, some cards won't have, like, Kiddo Tough on them. And these 3 all do. And some won't have Jan Ghost of Gold, but some of these do. And, I just picked some names. We could pick different names too, but these are just names I picked off the top of my head. It took me about 10 minutes to do this, and then they did all the work. They just randomly printed out 30 cards for me with them in different orders. So the process is, between now and next week, you need to send me an instant message, an IM or PM, whatever, I don't want to call that, but whatever you call those things, on Facebook, and say, but that's how you do it. Don't send me an email or call me or whatever. Send me a message and say, yeah, I'd like to play POA Bingo next week on the POA podcast. Just say I'd like a card, and I'll send you a picture of one of these cards, and then I'll mark down the card in your name, and then you can either print it off or have it on your phone, and you can use your stylus and X out when one comes, or you can print it off and put pennies, or maybe some people have chips or whatever. Maybe we got some professional bingo players and you have daubers. I don't know, whatever. But you can do that. And then here's the swag table here in the studio. I'm looking at it right now. Here we can go live. That's that right there. That's just a picture of it. So I cut off the red glasses to make the picture. We got sunglasses in red, white, and blue, cups in red, white, and blue, green, and yellow, 6 different kinds of Frisbees, probably 7 different types of hats, of course, all with Jackson's logo. And then, again, I didn't get my stuff here, but I got a couple nicer awards for the first couple winners. So it'll be fun. I hope people play. I hope we can do it. If only 4 or 5 people want to play, then we're just going to have a slideshow and we won't get to have bingo. So here's our new setup on the showroom floor, our little lounge. We got one in service, so now we've put one up there. You can see the tire of the old Jeep a little bit behind there. There again, I got to put the picture up. So there's the picture. And there's the swag. I was talking about, a picture of the swag. And there's the bingo cards again. So as you can see on here, we have some modern POAs. A few, like R.Y. Sudden Equity was a grand champion. Pal Casey Jones is still around. R.Y. Major Equities passed away, but he's still a newer one. And then we have some older ones like MP Speculator, and I picked some colorful ones too. Barkeeper, I realized Barkeeper's 2 words, but when he was registered as a baby, it was 1 word. Just a trivia for you. TC Impulsive Weedo is still going. That's Tracy Stallion. So you see some, new and old on here, and I'll give hints on some if I think some people might not know who they are. I might just outright have the name on there, say it, but like some of the older people might not know, older breeders or older enthusiasts might not know who Z Party Starts Now is. Of course, he's a beautiful buckskin stallion that was grand champion. So his picture will be on there. Possibly, if he gets called, some of these might not get called. Now, how it's going to work is I'm going to cut the little squares out, and I'm going to put them in a hat, probably a Jackson's hat, and go figure. And I'm going to pull them out, and you don't have to pay. It's free. I was thinking about doing a fundraiser, like $5 a card, and sell 30 cards and have $150 sponsorship, but that's fine. I'm not going to do that to my viewers, it's free. You don't have to pay. If you feel like donating money to the club or something, go ahead. But it's totally free. You get a card for free and you get to win stuff. I just can't afford shipping, so I'll have to get it to somebody. Like for yours, I'd get it to Tracy or somebody in July at the Congress. So the Lannan's bloodline had a positive influence on the breed. What's the colors? Well, thanks, Terry, for watching tonight. And thanks, everybody, for watching tonight. Again, the bingo, please, we know Albie's going to play now. And Philip and Denny Bruton from the Panhandle, Oklahoma, they were the first two to sign up for cards. So it'll be fun. And like I say, not all the names will get called, but a lot of them will. And we'll just keep playing on and on. I got this idea hanging out with some POA friends at the Barrel House next to the Julian in Dubuque. So I got this idea at the POA banquet at the deal in February. So I decided to turn it into a POA fun game. So we need to have a little fun. All right, everybody, thank you for all the comments. Thanks, Lisa, Jan, Terry, everybody else that commented tonight, and everybody that said hi, and everybody that was too shy to say anything, but you're watching. I know we have a lot of viewers. Again, go to YouTube, to the POA History channel, and you can check out all the videos on there. She will start putting these on weekly now, so they won't get behind. And again, tell people to go on there. It's a great way to spread POA. I think this is a very good tool. I know it's helped people. People's bought and sold POAs through here and breedings and got interested again in POAs. So I want to thank everybody for watching. This was the 6th episode of the year and the 107th episode of my POA podcast, Black Hand and Beyond. So again, see you next week. It'll be Tuesday, March 25th. Have a great week, everybody. Enjoy the song.
My BFF is a POA. We go together like PB and J. It takes talent and it takes brains. Fixing up together with a celebrate. Don't get down with just a saddle up. Set out to win the rhythm of the war right up. All with partners and potentiality. My pony and me.
Come join the family.